think it's called COVID. Corona! It's the Coronacast with Daliso Chaponda!
So I'm back with Coronacast, and today's episode is about survivalism, right? Survivalists fascinate me. Now, these are people who have spent a lot of time preparing for the collapse of society, and there are lots of different ways this can happen. One of them is, of course, something like this: a biofactor and an epidemic going wild, right? But they're ready for all sorts of things. Some of them thought that the end of days is going to come. It's the rapture, it's like a religious event. Some people, predict a nuclear war. Actually, nuclear war was probably where the survivalism sort of grew out of, because I actually remember when I was a little kid, we were terrified of nuclear war, right? I was going to school in Kenya, and we were terrified of a Russian nuclear weapon. Not that they would even target Kenya, but it was so in everything we watched. It was in all the movies, it was in all of the newspapers. Everybody was obsessing about the Cold War. Now, survivalism really sort of started as a movement probably the 20s. I think it's in the 20s and 30s with fears of nuclear war. And I may be getting the timeline wrong, but essentially it's a lot of people who have started preparing for the end of days, for the coming of aliens, so be it. And a lot of the things they do are things that everybody is sort of starting to do now as our lives have been affected by this virus. One of them is preparing by gathering supplies, right? A lot of you in the countries where you live may have had, people raiding the supermarkets and panic buying all the toilet paper, buying all of the cans. I don't fully understand this. I mean, how many toilet paper rolls do you need, right? Now, it's one thing if you're a family of 6, but there are people who live alone who are getting like 42 packs. Now, I don't know whether you roll like layers and layers and layers every time you wipe your bum. I would not think toilet paper would have been the first thing to go. I understand cans of peas and beans. It's not just food. They also get things like medical kits. They also get like torches and candles in the event of powers cutting out. And it's just sort of preparing for the worst, right? They also try to learn survival skills. Things such as first aid, things such as hunting, right? If we need to go hunting. Now, I live in the middle of Manchester, middle of a city. If the food supply chain breaks down, I don't know what we're gonna hunt. There's no foxes roaming. I guess it's gonna be like pigeons. That's the only wildlife I see. But they practice hunting. They learn how to hunt. I guess other humans is what they might hunt. And then they also learn martial arts skills, right? Like I did maybe 6 months of Shotokan when I was 12. So I'm ready. I've still got the katas ready. I don't know if they'll help if things come, but I'm ready to just be like, yeah! But anyway, it's preparation for the end. And the reason why they've been in popular culture a lot more now is a lot of them are now having their I told you so moment. They're like, we told you things were going to break down. We told you this stuff was inevitable. We've been preparing for years. Some of these people have bunkers. Bunkers! Now, if there was ever like a nuclear end of the world bunker because a meteor was hitting the planet, I know I wouldn't be picked, right? Because you got to put the best of society, the most intelligent of society, like doctors, scientists. I'm a comedian. They can make themselves laugh. I'm going to be the last one chosen. I think the only way I'm going in is I have to offer to do sexual favors. It's like, I'll suck or rub anything. Please just let me in. Again, this is more me entertaining myself than anything else. I was a little bit depressed at the beginning of the cast, and I've cheered myself up. So I hope I'm making some of you laugh along with it too. But they build bunkers, they prepare for the end of days. But I guess this is the thing. As more and more of us start doing this sort of thing, I'll admit I've bought quite a lot of supplies. I bought things like, I bought baby food. I bought Cerelac because I read on a prepper website, the prepper is another word for survivors. I read from a prepper website that two of the best things you can buy is baby food and protein for like people doing weightlifting, because they're packed with protein. And so if you eat that instead of porridge, you can last longer. So I bought baby food. I don't have a baby, right? And as more of us do it, I think there is a danger of losing your humanity. Like, free for all, every man for himself, and everybody's like raiding stores and grabbing all that they can, and if you knock someone over on the way, who cares? It's kind of depressing. Especially because they're older people, they're disabled people, infirm people who could not fend for themselves necessarily in this kind of situation. And I think it would also be a fallacy to say that the people who would survive the most would be the people who are most cutthroat. Now don't worry, jokes are coming. At the end of this little cast, I'm going to do a few jokes. But I will be serious for a moment before I do the jokes about survivalism, in saying that there's a book which I read. It's an amazing book. If you're looking for a good book to read, it's a very short book. You can probably read it in 4 or 5 hours. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, right? And he wrote it while he was in a concentration camp, and he's a psychologist. And he observed something very interesting, because he'd always assumed, and a lot of psychologists had always assumed, that man is motivated by our desires, our wants. You know, we need to eat, we need sex, we need, just base instincts, and that is what motivates us at all times. And in a situation where there are no rules, it would be Lord of the Flies. People would be on top of each other, killing each other for food. It would be survival of the fittest. But one interesting thing that he realized was the people who survived longer, the people who managed to endure more, were the people who were doing things like helping the little children, right? Helping the old people. People who were giving up some of their food for somebody who needs it more. Even though they had less food, somehow they felt better. And that gave their lives meaning. And somehow that made them better. Now look, I'm paraphrasing it. The book is so much more than that. You'd have to read it to get the full picture. But there is something in that which resonated me, which made me realize that it's not just about survival, right? So right now, a lot of people are moved towards survival. Make sure you survive. Make sure you survive. But I think there's also make sure your life still has a meaning, right? Make sure you still have the important things from day to day. It may be hard to get them. I don't know if you get it by it's little things like calling your friends and family, but it can even be things like if you live in a building, like I live in a building. I wrote a little thing about if anybody needs anything and they for some reason can't leave the building, right? Just leave a note here and we'll arrange something where I'll get it, and then maybe you put the money in my mailbox or something. But just little things where offering to help other people, you might be surprised how much it makes you feel better. It makes you feel still human. Anyway, but I know most of you just tuned in for the jokes, so I wrote some jokes. Ladies and gentlemen, some jokes about survivalism. I have written them on this note. Okay, so it's actually only 2 jokes. Because I spent the day writing a novel, there was no time to write as many jokes as yesterday, but I think they're good ones. Okay, so the first one is, I think the first actual survivalist was a Noah, right? Noah, who started building a boat. He believes the rain is coming. And there's always that line with survivalists, is if nothing happens, they are absolute idiots, right, who we can make fun of. And if something terrible happens, they are prophets. They are the people who are ahead of the curve. And Noah was, patient zero. And the thing I've always found funny about Noah is I don't think the most interesting story is of Noah. Because if you believe in the story, even if you just think of it as like a fantastical myth, the idea is this man gets a vision from God, tells him a flood is coming, build a boat. This is easy for him because he saw the vision. The really interesting version of the story, I almost wish there was an alternate Bible version, which is the story of the wives, because I think it's much harder to be the wife of a prophet than to be a prophet. Could you imagine? Your husband shows up at home and says, I just saw God. God told me to build a boat. I bought all this wood. I'm going to start building a boat. And you're like, what? You spent our life savings on what? We had put that aside for the kids' university. What? You bought wood? You don't know the first thing about carpentry. How are you going to build a boat? What do you mean there's going to be a flood? You're not a meteorologist. You absolute idiot. Can you imagine? And then it's one thing to have faith in God when you've just seen the vision of an angel. But the wives in the Bible, they have to have faith in their husband, who they know is fallible, who they know could possibly be mad and has hallucinated the angel, who they know is fallible because they've probably had arguments, they've seen how bad they are in bed, you know what I mean? It's much harder to have faith in a man than have faith in this vision. And so I always thought that the funny side would actually be the side of the story of Noah's wife, or Abraham's wife, when it's like, wait, we have to go walk into the wilderness? What did you do? What did you do? You took our son and you pulled out a knife and you were gonna sacrifice him? What? Yeah, I know you stopped, but what if you sleeping on the couch today? So that's joke number one. And joke number two is actually maybe a tip. Because I realize that a lot of people have been buying all this stuff like toilet paper and cans and bottles of water and dried fruit. I started buying cigarettes, right? Cigarettes. Loads and loads of cigarettes. I don't smoke. But I know that smoking is an addiction. And addiction is where the profit comes from. Because if the end of days comes, I'm going to just find a few junkies, find a few people addicted to nicotine, and I'm going to trade them from everything I want. So I don't need to fill my house with bags of flour. I can just take 1 or 2 cigarettes when cigarettes are scared and say, hey, I'll give you 2 Marlboros. Give me a bag of rice. I'm playing prison rules. I'll be back tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoyed this, please write it in the comments. If you have any subjects you'd like me to tackle, every day is a different, check that out. But more importantly, I released What the African Said. This is my stand-up DVD, my first stand-up special. I released it for free on YouTube for the duration of the coronavirus. Usually you'd have to go to Amazon Prime or something and buy it. No, you can stream it for free. You don't need to go to buy it in iTunes. It's on YouTube. Please go check it out. It's an hour and 20 minutes of some of my funniest jokes. What the African Said. It's called. Please enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, just try to find some meaning. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.